Hello and welcome to Anyways, a Deadwood video podcast where we go through each episode of Deadwood. We're now on season 2, episode 1, A Lie Agreed Upon, part 1. And I'm Ben.
I'm Jordan.
Steven.
Chad.
And in this episode, the tensions between Bullock and Swearengen came to a head, which is unusual because the first episode of a new season usually doesn't complete the kind of the arc of the previous season.
Yeah.
We had a very quiet, beautiful season ender, and now we have this just a kind of like chance word on the street leads to this dramatic confrontation.
Yeah. Well, Swearengen's pissed off that Bullock is shirking his duties to the camp now that he's sheriff because he wants to be hooking up with Garrett all the time.
Yeah.
And that it's just messing up his long-term plans and designs he has for Bullock's role.
And as always with Swearengen, there's a little bit of just crazy, violently rage frustration that he takes off on the nearest person. Like it seems rational, but it's also like, I don't know.
But so he goes to take care of that dispute with the pissing before all of that stuff goes down.
Do you want to go scene by scene?
Yeah, we can. But I was just saying. I think it's interesting because in that scene, I think you can kind of see where Al has a point to where Bullock comes in. It's just like, he did what? Okay. Do it again and I'll shoot you. And then
watch it.
Yeah, watch it. And then it just leaves.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
You're right. He's a bit distracted.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
This is your job, dude.
But from a tactical perspective, as soon as Al says the things that he says to Bullock, he looks down. After Bullock turns away, he postures and threatens him back, and then he just looks down and sighs. And his henchmen all go, and then they're all like off. What do we got to do today?
Right. Yeah.
Fuck.
It's a tactical mistake on Al's part to antagonize Bullock this way.
So how long has it been?
It's been winter. He made a reference to the upright pain in the balls Bullock was all last summer.
Yeah.
So the snows have come and gone.
Okay.
And and as you pointed out, Al Swearengen has a different haircut.
Yeah. It's a little bit longer.
Well, Bullock does too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everything, in the meantime, Sarah Paulson has appeared as a assistant to Alma Garrett.
Like a tutor.
Whose name is Mrs. Isringhausen, she just appears without much introduction this episode. But she's kind of distracting because she's much a larger star now than she was then. The first scene is Mrs. Martha Bullock and her son William Bullock are in the coach on the way to Deadwood.
But you don't know that at first, I guess.
No.
You're just like, oh, it's a bunch of sex workers, and then there's a kid in there.
She's very recognizable from a television show, which you haven't seen, called Breaking Bad, where she also plays a wife to a main character. Her name is Anna Gunn. And there's also a woman in there who you might recognize who may or may not have played the Borg Queen, Alice Creech.
Oh, yeah.
She's the dark-haired Maddie.
Oh, yeah.
And she, as one of my friends one time watching this said, she has black eyes. Like she has just like very dark eyes at certain moments where she just seems really creepy.
Yeah.
Just her natural demeanor is fun.
Sure.
But anyway, Bullock's adoptive son, William, is staring at a woman's breast. And his mom hits him in the foot.
Mm-hmm. They're coming into town. It's sort of said by at least one character, like, Coach is coming in, still over the hill.
Yeah, everyone's excited because, you don't know who's going to be on it, what's coming to town, who's coming to town. So it's, everyone's out on their porch watching and waiting,
Who was president at the time? They said?
Hayes. And it could be jugglers or face painters as well.
Yeah, Cy was in rare form this episode.
In terms of these scenes, we have Al Swearengen is meeting with Adams, who's rode into town after gone to Yankton and come back.
Yeah.
And he has some bad news to deliver to Al, and all his henchmen just kind of gather to listen to the bad news. And there's this really wonderful look on his face where he just wants to go take a bath, and Swearengen just keeps getting more and more riled up and decides to drink. And
then that's when he pulls the letter out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, why the fuck didn't you give me the letter beforehand? He's like, we'll deliver the rest of it to you, you know.
He said, "Just say what I knew first."
Say what I knew first.
Yeah. Adam seems a cautious person, which I think I like that about him. That he usually, when he explains his reasoning for things, it makes sense why he did it.
Al he takes out a magnifying glass and talks about how bad his eyesight is.
It's come to this.
And he reads the note, and then it seems to be his very generic note, which says, "We thank you for your your gestures of support." And
Yes.
he says, "What does that mean?" And Adam says they don't know what they want to do yet.
Right.
And
So the bribes maybe
They want to
aren't
see what
doing
you'll
shit.
do.
Yeah.
Right.
so Al feels very like impotent and alone and afraid, and he just has this wonderful shot where he like picks up a bottle and drinks,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes out on his balcony to talk philosophically about the telegraph system.
Yeah.
Well, hell, I can burn all them damn poles down.
Turn them into kindling.
Burn them into kindling.
Well, Al's art. It's one of the rare times where Dan has like the upper hand on Al.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, oh wow, that's pretty insightful, Dan. You know, talking about the Indians had been doing smoke signals for hundreds of years.
And it's just a slower version of the same idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Al is immediately like, "When's the last time you got good news? Got letters from a stranger or letters from a fucking stranger?"
Yeah. Bad news.
About my paw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Al has this ridiculous idea that telegraphs are bad.
Right. I think I don't know. To me, it's like all things progress seem scary to Al because he likes the way things are.
Well, I think he also likes the idea of having distance
Yeah.
from all of that. And
The
that makes it immediate.
interconnected to everyone is
Scary.
not good for his thing he's got going on.
No, as soon as something happens, boom, it's everywhere then.
People know it. Yeah, telegraph? You
Yep.
kidding me? That's like
Exactly.
almost instantaneous,
Yeah.
And at the same time, Bullock is meeting with Alma. It's very similar to the last meeting in the last episode.
They met.
They met.
They fucked.
They talked in formal language and behaved stiffly, and then all of a sudden he grabbed her and they started making out and then taking off their clothes.
Sloppily.
Stiffly.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Mrs. Isringhausen takes Sophia, her orphan ward, downstairs to the restaurant below.
Mm-hmm.
And
So they won't be able to hear it.
but they're having sex so much that the pieces of paint are falling off the ceiling into her schoolwork, into people's food. And
Everyone's
Ellsworth,
having to just talk around it. Yeah.
and Ellsworth comes to oversee the shipment of her gold to Denver, and Farnham is sniping at him and about the fact that his employer is having sex with Bullock.
Yeah.
There's a conversation between Alma and Bullock about their love affair, in which he says, "With you, I've been perfectly happy," which is just a
It starts because he won't lay in bed with her
He always
afterwards.
gets up.
He always gets up, sits in the chair next to her,
yeah.
and she's all splayed out there, and it's just like, what the fuck's up? Why don't you want to cuddle afterwards?
It's hot.
But it's just very. Again, he seems a lot more prim and proper than her, but it seems like he's basically like he's accepted the fact that his wife might come,
Yeah.
and she hasn't. Anyway, so he steps out, and Ellsworth finally has the nerve to knock on the door and say, "Can we stop the men from drinking and let's start loading the stagecoach?" And they go out. He goes out and starts walking, and I really love Swearengen's narration, which is like striding out like some randy maniac bishop.
Yeah.
Athwart in a fairy bubble. It's very great. It's a great speech.
Yeah. Sheriff, about to his duties at the camp. Luck trouble didn't jump out sooner, huh, Bullock? Might have found you mid-thrust in other business. I love that so
And
much.
that's what turns him around.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
like, excuse me? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
And I guess this is also when you find out that Charlie Utter has been deputized.
Yeah, because he went around
Right.
looking at, talking to the other drunks.
Because beforehand, you could kind of, like in that other scene, like what you're talking about with the piss stuff, it just seems like Charlie's just there. I never saw his badge or anything. And it
Yeah.
seems like he was just helping Bullock. And then in this scene is where you actually see that he has a badge underneath his coat. And you're like, oh, okay.
Fire marshal, I guess.
Fire
is
marshal's
Either it didn't work out or he's doing 2 jobs.
Yeah, which is possible.
I think his
Yeah.
natural role is sidekick.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true too.
gravitate
He
to
just,
that.
yeah. I need to follow a gunslinger around.
But
I need to back someone's play somewhere.
yeah. But so Bummer Dan is at Bummer Dan is at Tom Nuttall's number 10, and he thought it would be funny if he was pissing in the cuspidor, and was kicked out and pissed on the bartender, Harry Manning, and
What is a cuspidor?
it's where you put your
Spit.
ashes.
Okay.
Oh, there's no spitting. I guess
Well,
I thought it was ashes. But
No, I guess you might be right
Spittoon.
because there's a spittoon. Isn't a cuspidor a spittoon also? Like I thought that was the technical name for it. I might
that
be
sounds right.
wrong.
I have not looked up what cuspidor actually
Well,
means.
now wait a minute. Wasn't it? It was Slippery Dan. I thought that had
Oh.
pissed in
Slippery
the
Dan was the,
cuspidor.
Oh, yeah, you're right,
was the
yeah.
culprit.
Yes,
right, sorry.
but
Bummer
Bummer
Dan.
Dan,
Bummer Dan.
went in with Slippery Dan's jacket. This was like a hilarious prank.
Yeah.
In Deadwood times apparently.
It's a very
Yeah.
coat of many colors coat.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost gestury.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, gestury, like it's a joke. But like,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
So Slippery Dan had peed in the cuspidor, had been ejected from the number 10. So he had his friend, compatriot, Bummer Dan,
Mm-hmm.
dress in his jacket to go in as just a jest.
Yeah.
And he was shot immediately because he had, because
Right, yeah.
Slippery Dan had been warned,
And
like, don't darken this door today or you'll get shot.
yeah. And it's one of the few times where the show almost crosses over into too broad Coen Brothers-esque comedy.
Yes.
Where it's a little bit. Did it
Yeah.
feel too much or?
I didn't feel like it was too much, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Not too much, but yeah, I mean, like, for a second, you're just completely lost as to, like, this is what the season opener is about, huh? Some guy pissing in a spittoon.
Right. If it were a procedural drama, yeah.
Well, I feel like it's a good sort of thing to see a fairly newly minted Sheriff Bullock having to deal with. Like,
Yeah.
just this
This is
absurd
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing that's like there's a man dead on
This
the
is
floor
life now for
Yeah.
Sheriff of Deadwood.
Exactly.
over some nonsense.
This
And
is
this
the
is-
petty kind of
And
things.
this is
that
kind of
you're
what
gonna have
Bill
to-
was talking to him about. Wild Bill was talking to him about.
Mhm.
It was like that's what being a sheriff's like. That's why you got out of it, right?
Right. Yeah.
All this petty, stupid shit.
And it really does serve the idea of him being distracted. Like
Yes.
he has a wonderful formulation where he says, "You didn't mean to kill the man you did, and you didn't kill."
The man. Yeah.
I don't.
There's like this very convoluted
You didn't kill the man
reasoning
you went-
to
meant
why he
to.
was okay with it
And the
happening.
man you did
And-
kill.
yeah,
You didn't mean to, or something. Yeah. Yeah.
And that sentence and the entire story goes back over 100 years. It's from a book called Old Deadwood Days by Estline Bennett, and it's unclear to me whether or not it's tall tales or a memoir, but she purports for it to be a memoir. And there's the story of Slippery Sam and Bummer Dan, and the same trick is pulled, and the same thing is said, but in that case by the jury that lets him go.
Okay.
So it's just like, you didn't mean to kill the right person, so you're good.
Yeah. You killed the wrong guy. It was an accident. You didn't kill who you meant to kill. So you're free to go.
So I guess Bullock goes back. Actually, first we have Al Swearengen goes back into his office,
Mm-hmm.
and Dan says, "I'll get the big gun."
Because it's immediately apparent to him, like, that there's a problem
Yeah.
between Swearengen and Bullock,
Well, I mean,
like a deadly problem,
I mean,
potentially.
Bullock was staring daggers at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Swearengen said you don't want
He
to.
was deliberately provoking him, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the same
like he even said in his chamber too. Like after everyone walked out, it's like sometimes the only way to get a mule's attention is to like strike him between the ears
With a pole.
With a pole,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like he's fucking up, and I got to get his attention.
So I got to throw his ass off a balcony.
Right. So I'm gonna call his ass out in front of everybody.
Yeah. And Trixie goes and gets Saul Star and says, "Hey, watch out! Your partner's about to get gutted." And Charlie Utter attempts to stop Bullock from going there.
But then he's basically just like, no, Charlie, I got it. Which was fucking ridiculous. Is like, that whole place is littered with little minions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, of course, Charlie makes the right decision and goes to the fucking gym and waits down there.
Yeah.
And it's great sort of nonverbal exchange between Dan and Johnny,
I
who's
don't know how much information was
like, yeah, it's like it's unclear what Johnny is understanding based on
right.
Dan's like nods.
I don't know how
and
much information was received.
was received. Yeah,
he goes and stands in a place like a location like here. It's like yeah.
Well, it's intermixed with all these serious shots of like Charlie and Saul setting up in the bar, like
Yeah,
walking out with their
nodding
guns, and then it's the Johnny and
Johnny doesn't know who's what.
yeah. Let's see. I guess it just builds, and it's just this sudden. They have a conversation. Swearengen is trying to pee.
Yep.
He's like, he say that it's just age that's causing him not to pee. It's not fear of Bullock.
Not fear you. Yeah.
And so then he brings up why she's taking her money out of town and not leaving it here.
And then he starts talking about her civic duty, and it's like you're taking all that money to Colorado or whatever, and it's going there. It's where it's getting invested and all this stuff. And it's like, what about this town? What about where it came from? What about where the money came from? The camp.
Yeah.
And it's just everything to just get under his skin.
Well, I mean, I think he's truly trying not to have a fight. He just can't help being an evil bastard.
Well, these two just are going to butt heads.
They just always rub each other the wrong way.
Yeah. They're meant to. It's like,
yeah. But he makes some points that basically he needs Bullock's help, and he just keeps throwing in references to if you sheave your prick long enough, or
Yeah.
and like one of them is just the upright pain my balls or our balls last summer. Like that isn't even that bad, but apparently Bullock is offended by even that, and he gets so offended by just references to sex that he takes off his badge.
Takes off his gun,
gun belt.
puts him down.
yeah.
And then it's blows.
Yeah.
Did you guys like the staging? Sometimes some people find it there's too much stunt actor
Like
obvious.
Oh, I
Scuffle.
didn't. Maybe I'm just don't have a refined eye, but I didn't.
Yeah, I thought it was
quite
very
even
tense.
It
spot
wasn't an
that.
action
No,
scene. It was
yeah.
literally two guys just going at
Yes,
each other
it
with
was-
no
yeah,
fighting ability.
sloppy.
Yeah.
It was how those things usually shake down.
Yeah.
Messy and unelegant. and
Yeah.
Falling off a balcony.
Just scuffling, rolling around in the mud.
Yeah.
And this leads to, I think, the best line of the episode, where the stagecoach pulls in, and they're down in the mud, and
Covered in blood.
it's covered in blood all over their faces. And
Al
has pulled his knife out of his boot, and he says, like,
Yeah, I did have a knife.
I did have a knife. Yeah,
It just came
It is
to
almost
me.
like a Batman villain.
Right. Yeah.
It came to me in a vision.
It came to me in a vision, and he's sitting there, and he's got Bullock, and then he looks up, and he sees Bullock's adoptive son.
Whose face has been covered by his mom, but then
Then it gets uncovered and eye to eye.
And he says,
Welcome to fucking.
"Welcome to fucking Deadwood."
Points the knife at him too.
and he says
Welcome.
Paul's can be combative,
Yeah.
which is the story behind that is apparently his stage directions were can be combative, and he just adopted that as dialogue. But it's he almost like he just like goes like and he swings his knife in frustration after not killing Bullock, and then he
Yeah.
immediately hurts his back. So it's just like fuck, and it's just it's a wonderful thing. And-
Shows the aging.
Well, is
Al.
it like okay? So, is it he hurt his back or did he break a rib? Like
Oh, yeah.
in
It
a
almost looked
fall
like he
and,
broke
like,
he
ribs,
was
yeah.
underneath
like,
Bullock. He landed on his
Yeah,
back.
Yeah.
and you see him getting his bound, binded
Yeah.
by cloth
Yeah.
later, which I figured like okay, that's a rib or two.
And
Yeah.
Also, just before this, Dan gets the drop on Bullock, and Adams pulls him away, saying it's not your kill. And then Johnny, Utter, and Saul come out of the thing,
Clusterfuck.
and Johnny just pulls out his gun and they're not even pointing him at Johnny.
And
he just thinks that
and he
they're-
has like a rifle.
It's
not
like,
a
they're
pistol.
running at him and he just starts
Yeah.
firing.
and it looks like at first that he's killed them both.
Well, it looks like he's killed Saul, and to me, I was like, "Oh, he's Charlie's now deaf." in one
Right,
ear.
yeah.
Like he's shot right next to his head.
Right.
Yeah.
Saul looked heart shot at
Yeah,
first.
exactly.
Like just, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a fake out, but then Johnny, I love that Johnny shoots them, and then it just shuts to him, and he's just like looking around. He's like, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
Like
he didn't fucking do it.
yeah,
right,
like it's something that's happening to him.
right, yeah.
But
Why is this day happening to me?
And he's such the nicest henchman.
Yeah, well, and he even asks about him constantly through
Yeah.
the episode
Yeah,
if they're
that's right.
okay. Like, no hard feelings for sure from Johnny on that. You just spooked him and he had a gun.
He just brought, he shouldn't have come out with that purse gun.
What was he thinking
Purse
coming to
gun.
me with that purse gun?
And there's all these little great moments. Like Bullock walks over to his wife, and he has like this mark of Cain sticks in his face, where he has like
Yeah.
blood from his forehead to his chin.
Yeah.
And he's like dazed. I don't remember what he says, but it's a very awkward conversation.
Well, every conversation
Yeah.
between them in this episode is extremely awkward.
Oh my gosh.
You like, pull your fucking fingernails out.
That
It's-
went. Yeah, I don't want to get ahead though. But
Yeah.
there was a
The long scene where she's dressed in red, as you pointed out.
yeah.
You pointed out there was
When
the
she,
scarlet.
when she insists on coming to see if Bullock's okay, knowing that the wife is in camp now.
yes.
Yeah.
And is going to be there.
Yeah.
Well,
So she inserts herself into a situation that she naturally would not be involved
No.
in, which completely betrays her. That whole thing.
So many things betray that.
Oh yeah, I feel like there's
Bullock's-
not a subtle bone in either of their
No,
bodies.
no.
And fair enough to Bullock. He is dazed like for the rest of the episode, basically.
But also,
after
they
his
just
fight.
can't lie
But
either.
No,
of them. They're
it-
both terrible at lying.
and trying too hard
Yeah.
to
Oh, yeah,
cover
yeah.
up. And it's like,
Protesting too much.
just
Yeah.
stop talking.
And it's all
Yeah.
on Alma because, like literally Saul is having a bullet extracted from his body behind them.
Right.
Right.
She's,
And
like, having
she's
these
just standing in the
pleasantries.
middle of the room with everyone looking at her.
It's such a weird
And since
thing.
we're already on that scene, there's just like that amazing moment where Bullock's like, "Didn't you remember her from my letters?" And it's like, "Bum, bum, ba, bum, bow."
Well, that brings Martha. Martha then gets to lie.
Yeah.
She's
Right.
like, yeah, totally.
And then Charlie tries to provide cover in the worst way possible, where he's like,
We lose more letters than we deliver.
"We deliver. We lose more letters than we deliver."
Absolute silence.
Absolute silence for like 3 seconds. That should have been almost like,
I know.
"I'm gonna leave now."
She just stood there.
stands there.
I think Merrick had kind of like a just
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
awkward sort of like.
And
Right.
Eric's holding two hats and looking physically ill.
As the person who doesn't understand what's going on
No,
anyway.
right.
In a way, Merrick is always holding two hats. that is his permanent
Yeah.
stance in a scene.
Both he and Farnham seem very upset by blood in this episode. Farnham has a moment after
But
the
strangely,
street.
not Charlie.
Oh, you're right. And Charlie's been established as not
Oh,
being
that's
upset.
right.
I was really confused with that through the whole scene. I was
It-
like, he's standing, staring that way while Saul is getting that bullet taken out, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we forgot about that."
Maybe he was cured by the sound of the bullet. It just pacified his fear.
He's got ringing in his
I
ear.
mean, there's indication that the real life Charlie Utter and that Charlie Utter have all been in gunfights. Like he's surely, I don't know, he's been in violence before. He clearly
Sure.
is a man who knows how to do violence. I don't know how he faints at blood, but
I don't know.
Could be his own blood.
It could
Yeah.
just be his own blood. That's true.
I love. There's a brief moment I've never noticed before where Farnham is like looking, and you can't tell what he's looking at, but he has his hand like this, and he's just like, and it's like he looks very concerned about like either I think Swearengen is hurt. I think he's looking at
yeah.
Swearengen.
God, he looks like a pumpkin head.
God damn! What a fuck, that makeup on that is incredible.
Yeah.
Because he
Eye
it's
half
like-
lidded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like Sloth from the Goonies.
It's a real tour de force. He gets up from the battlefield. He walks into his area, and he has enough strength to deliver an incredibly racist, anti-Semitic comic to Trixie. And he's like, you know,
wave a penny under his nose.
yeah, and it's just like, he goes through various. He still has enough in him to be incredibly angry at everyone. He threatens to kill Barney, who's bandaging his ribs. He then tells Jewel to get away from him, and then he grabs Farnham and pulls him to him, and Farnham is like doing pretty well for a while.
Yeah.
And then he's like touches him on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And his response is like, "I'll send your nose through your brain."
Right. Don't fucking touch me.
Which
Yeah.
is like not as clever as some of his other insults usually are.
No,
So you can
'cause
tell
he's out of
messed
it.
up.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just this wonderful thing where Farnham keeps trying to please him, and the concern is Farnham had in the previous scenes saw that Bullock was having a conversation with his son, and you had these point of view shots where he's very confused, and you pointed out the
Just kind of doubling and stuff.
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
it.
well, I didn't realize it was a point of view shot at first, but yeah.
but it's a very odd point of view shot.
I was like, wipe the lens off.
But Bullock is dazed and he's talking to his son, so Farnham overhears that and he relays that to Swearengen, which sets up this anxiety about
because he's worried about if Bullock's going to come back and what Bullock wants, and then he's like, he's coming back for his
badge and his gun.
badge and his gun, and then immediately he's like, what does that mean?
What tone?
What tone did he take? And he's like, he's talking to his son. I don't know. It was-
8-year-old.
Yeah. And it's a very traditional, again, sheriff thing for a Western is that he's overly concerned with the sacredness of his badge and gun.
yes.
Which is why he took it off in the first place. It's like this is a,
Right,
and
yeah.
he said to his son, "It's a personal matter."
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah. So the fact that he respects it so much that he won't even like get in a. Well, of course, the gun thing, I get. You want to disarm if you're not looking to kill somebody. You know, things get heated.
Yeah.
A gun will go off.
Yeah.
But the badge thing, especially, was like a sort of a symbolic gesture.
Very symbolic.
Well, to me, it's like appropriate. Like, just get a new badge and a gun. Don't freaking antagonize the guy you just tried to.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
just-
yeah.
Like,
But
you can
that's-
get one from the store. You own a hardware store. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's like he was talking to an 8-year-old, so it's like it is this idea of honor that's very
Yes,
childlike.
that's a
Yeah.
principle thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
no, I'm not leaving my stuff up in
With fucking
his
Al.
office. I'm going to get it back, even if I have to kill somebody. You know.
Get into another damn fight.
And then there's this wonderful moment where, Farnham's just like, well, I could take the badge and gun back.
You're right.
And then there's this imitation of Farnham by Al.
Oh my god. That came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was like spot on. Like it was really good.
It kind of sounded like Ray Romano a little bit.
But it's so weird because it's like his face is already, like you said, Pumpkinhead-esque.
Yeah.
And this weird, perfect imitation of Farnham comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And if you look at, people point this out, if you look at Adams during that scene, he cracks up and holds it.
Oh man, I want to watch it again now.
And then we also have Adams and Doherty, and they're, Doherty is like...
So now there's a schism between them because Adam stopped him from
shooting
Bullock. Is like,
Right.
well, yeah, you don't want to fucking gun down the sheriff. It's like,
Right.
I mean, I think
Fist
that
fight.
might have been his best bet. I mean, I bet they could have, they could have like covered it up in some way, maybe at this point. I don't know. I mean,
by using both barrels and blowing the sheriff's head off in the middle of the main thoroughfare
yeah, that's a good point. It's just, it just
With a
seems like
stagecoach that had just pulled up.
with his wife and child.
I just don't feel Deadwood is even that civilized, and I feel like Swearengen's control so much that I guess he would have to kill a lot of friends of Bullock. Yeah.
Well, the other problem was Cy was up there watching too. He could have easily used that whole thing against him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And he was saying, I can't remember the line, but I think he was mainly, Cy was mainly like, oh, it'd be a, good luck for me if one of these was a mortal blow.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I
In
think,
his in his Statler and Waldorf commentary
Yeah.
up in the balcony.
yeah, he's very disappointed.
Yeah.
You know what I liked about that fight? Nothing.
And then I guess we go to Cy Tolliver. He's meeting with Maddie and Joni Stubbs in the Bella Union,
Mm-hmm.
and he's very taken aback by the fact that Maddie, Joni Stubbs' friend, aka the Borg Queen, Alex Krieg, is come to take over the space that he thought Joni had abandoned last year that she bought in the previous season. And all throughout his conversation with her, he's throwing boxes, like little tied up boxes at them.
Parcels,
Right.
yeah.
So he can't go like 5 seconds without threatening some sort of violence to
Yeah.
them.
Right.
And he's really angry at Al. He has these huge smiles that he just comes at her with, like, "Oh, it's very nice to see you,
And he
Maddie."
keeps licking his lips while
Yeah.
he's talking to him. Like it's very sexual.
Al did that once.
Yeah.
when he was leaning up in EB's ear in season 1.
Right, but like,
Stay friendly with them cocksuckers.
but like Sai, that's like his go-to move when he's dealing with people and he
Is
really
it-
wants to like.
yeah.
He wants to either fuck them or kill them or both or something.
probably both.
Or probably
Yeah.
both.
He's
As we
always
learned
in-
from this episode later, yeah.
He's often in various stages of undress too.
That's
like his
true.
hair's all messed up and
Yeah.
he's like his collar's open
Mm-hmm.
and he's like just falling all around the room.
Yeah, he's given up his trying to look suave
Yeah,
and
yeah,
debonair thing,
yeah.
and now he's just like a
Which, and I know it's
fucking lunatic.
awful, but I find him throwing parcels at people kind of hysterical.
Well, and credit to the the madam
Maddie.
Maddie. She doesn't flinch at all.
Right, yeah.
when a
It goes right-
parcel
it
It goes right
by
there.
her
And then he hits
head.
Joni right in the chest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. She speaks like softer and softer, and he tells her to speak up.
Which
Yeah.
is the way to deal with an escalating situation. you know?
Exactly.
Is to speak softly.
Yeah, yeah. You just
Carry a
if
big
you
stick.
if you
You
have
mentioned after we watched it that he mentions that the money he's desperate to know how Joni got the money to pay
Oh
for
yeah,
it, and he
of course.
says it,
Well, that's after he kicks Maddie
Maddie
out,
out.
Yeah.
right?
Maddie the madam.
would you mind if the two of us, being that we have a history,
18 years together.
yeah.
right? He's so just what's the word for that? It's not petulant.
I mean, he's sexually.
Passive-aggressive.
He is so coy in like just every scene.
Yeah, it's like he always says things in a nice. He says nice things in a really venomous way.
And he also makes his subtext way above the surface.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like snarky.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just. I love it. It's great.
He mentions that Eddie Sawyer most likely, and basically,
He's vamped.
he's
gone.
He's gone, but he successfully robbed Sai
Right.
and fled town.
That's why he's gone.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a behind the scenes story basically that Ricky Jay, who played Eddie Sawyer, was involved with David Mamet, and David Mamet wanted him for a play. And we only learned this about a year ago through a W.R. Brown podcast, but basically they had a yelling match between Mamet and Milch, and so as a result of that match, Ricky Jay was no longer on the show.
To be a fly on the wall
Yeah.
for that argument. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two screaming at each other.
Yeah.
The two people who do nothing but write people screaming at each
Yeah.
other.
Right. Yeah.
But it's unfortunate because Eddie Sawyer was such a cool character.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's just like
And there was so much setup there that was like ripe
yeah.
Yeah.
for the picking.
Yeah, but it kind of works that it was a disappearing act.
Yeah, exactly.
He got away.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. It didn't feel forced like that. That his exit seems
If you
logical.
If you wouldn't have told me that, I wouldn't have thought anything about it.
Should I have told you that?
No, that's good background.
Yeah.
You fucked up.
Well,
Now I'll never wonder if he'll come back again.
yeah.
well, I am sad that Ricky Jay's gone. I
Yeah.
assume from the rest of the series.
Well, I mean, we can neither confirm nor die, but
Okay.
he did die recently.
Well,
so
yeah, he's
unfortunately.
not coming
Yeah,
yet
obviously.
back for that, but yeah. Although he's a master magician,
Yeah, yeah.
that's bad. I don't-
Rest in peace, Ricky
Rest-
Jay.
seriously,
You were
rest-
really awesome.
He
Rest
was
in
really
pepperonis.
cool. Like
Um,
anybody who doesn't know about the career of Ricky Jay should look it up because he was awesome.
Alma visits Martha while Saul's having his stuff removed.
Yeah, it's for the best to not talk about that scene again.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah. So
I think
basically,
I shouted "leave." In the
Yes, you're like, leave, please.
Sai goes out onto his balcony with all the prostitutes of the Bella Union
Oh God.
and Maddie and Joni, and this is for the pretense of saying goodbye and toasting her off with champagne.
And giving Joni one of the sex workers from the Bella Union, which she does not want.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. But it's a gift.
It's a gift.
And if you don't, I'll cut her belly open. So.
And her name is Doris, and she's clearly being used for something other. Like
Yeah.
Did you say something about her being a spy or something?
Yeah, like to put their fears to rest. It's like, don't worry, she's not going to be a spy or anything.
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like his subtext is literally right there.
Right. Yeah.
But the main thing that comes across in that scene, which is like all Joni and Maddie do, is just like quietly deflect, and they just say no, Thank you, Sa. Can this be brief? Thank
because
you.
he'll turn around and smack him.
Yeah.
because
Well,
he's
and
a
then
psycho.
also, like, in an instant, he said,
after he's poured champagne down all their tongues, and they're
the one didn't
and
have-
pulls one of their jaws open. And it's like, no.
yeah. But he gets them to agree to 60 cents on every dollar.
Yeah, he's like,
That's
well,
a
since it
huge
was,
cut.
basically, since all this money was fucking stolen from me, you get 60 cents
an
on the
investor.
fucking dollar.
Yeah, he refers to it as his investment.
Yeah.
The money that was
And
taken
so now
from him.
her attempt to get out from under him is for nothing.
It's all fucked now.
Yeah.
So
Because now it's like a satellite of the Belly Union,
it's
basically.
almost like setting up more conflict or something.
But I mean, you know,
Like that. Yeah. Okay.
but she's getting better at dealing with him. She says, again, kill me or let me go. And then he skips like a little schoolboy. It's very odd. He's like,
earlier.
a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he's mad trying to pretend that he's happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's still like slamming shit
So
and
he's-
throwing boxes
And
around the
everybody
room.
knows-
I feel like a
Feel
little
like a
boy
boy
again.
And
Opens the door for her.
and like, you know, everybody knows that he's terrifying, but no one can admit to that reality in his presence. They all kind of have to honor.
No, because if you say the reality in front of him, he'll fucking lose it and kill somebody.
Oh yeah.
This is psycho.
I believe that I believe that he would be someone who would do that sooner than Al, almost, as far as like just a passion killing
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
He gives me the vibe.
You have to work Al up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Sai is just like turns on a dime.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he'll just like fucking kill you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say he
Yeah,
has
no build-up.
some of the most misogynistic dialogue of Deadwood, which is saying something in
It's
this
saying
episode.
a lot, but you're right.
Comes from him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, some of it has like a Shakespeare quality. Some of it remind me of. We've already talked about how Charlie Utter sounds like Tom Waits, but sometimes Powers Booth sound like Tom Bates when he said like, "I'm just a monkey and you think I'm just a monkey in a zoo. I'm gonna throw my shit after you." And he's like talking to like himself. And
Yeah.
all the women are just like, "All right, we need to get out of here."
Yeah.
He's
And he's still
insane.
he's
We're
still
leaving,
shouting
Si.
at her after the doors close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't think you've ever seen a good woman till you've seen one with maggots in her eyes."
Right.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
himself. This is intense shot, and he just looks so terrifying.
Yep. That's a
It's
little
just like-
glimpse into the mind of Saito.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
God.
I would say, you know, at this point, when I first watched this, I was like, are they going to give us the good qualities of Saitala, you know, like the gray aspect? I was just like, whoa, that's a villain.
Yeah.
He also had a kind of like quasi Shakespearean thing that we talked about before we started filming, which was he was describing Bullock's relationship with Alma, and he said that man has been pickling his prick in the cunt brine of another.
Yeah.
It's just a bizarre formulation that I don't think anyone would ever say.
Right. Yeah.
Like not Shakespeare, not Victorian writers,
Right, yeah.
not misogynistic brothel owners. Like,
No. You
it's
know,
a
he's,
metaphor about pickle.
yeah. About the process of pickling. Yeah.
Yes. Pickling a pecker.
Yeah.
And it just is so off-putting. It's like such an obsession with like vaginas and
Yeah, like he goes out of his way to sound more vulgar and
Yeah.
perverse in the way he describes things.
But like in a like middle school boy kind of way.
He's very childish. Like yeah, he's a kid that's way too big for his britches now.
Yeah. Way too damn old to be doing the
Yeah,
shit
yeah.
that he's doing, throwing packages at people and acting like a fucking moron.
That's what I like about that. Is not it's just the way it's edited.
Yeah.
He grabs it and he slings
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
then it just hard cuts to her and the impact.
yeah.
Almost like what it makes me think about is like, I wonder if he was trying to make her break, like the actor, like
right.
like that. How do you keep a straight face when people are throwing packages at you?
I don't know.
Do you guys think that his misogyny is too much? Do you think it's too little or too much? I mean,
For
it's-
Deadwood, no.
I don't think it was enough. No, I mean,
More
Yeah.
misogyny,
yeah,
Deadwood. Come
that
on.
doesn't seem accurate. He's pulling his punches a little.
But I mean, I guess you can't. Anytime in fiction where you're like, "Oh, that's too much," you always are.
Right, yeah.
Nonfiction always has eventually the same exact thing happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
Oh,
there's
God, yeah.
brothel owners that are that fucked
are
up.
worse.
I'm sure
Yeah.
people have had packages thrown at them even
Yes.
today.
Even to this day.
To this day, that's a problem.
And I can't believe we're already at the last scene. Bullock escorts his wife and boy to the new house he's built for
Yes.
them and talks about the letter that he wrote to her about the house.
This was one. It's like just
Stop
shut
bringing
up.
it up.
Stop talking. Just quit digging your hole deeper.
Stop it.
Yeah.
I
Talk
mean,
about the house you built.
It almost feels like he
Ask them how their
doesn't
trip was.
like he doesn't have to necessarily justify him.
Justified.
Right.
Justified.
Justified.
I mean, not like it's not proper for what he's doing if he's a married man to be doing. But all
Right.
the same, it's like, does he have to be covering so heavily for himself in regards to his relationship?
Right,
with
like-
Alma
like
and
how-
his wife. It's not like she refers to him as Mr. Bullock, his wife.
Right. They
And
don't
it's-
it's
know
clear
each other. They're not. Yeah, they
Right.
don't know each other.
It's more that I think it would dishonor her, or be somehow if it got out
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
that it shames her, and the whole point is that she's a widow and has lost her husband, and that's like more
In today's idea,
On top
it would
of her.
be very easy to just be like, "Hey, look,
things
this
happen.
is a weird marriage of convenience. I've actually fallen in love with somebody else.
Right.
You can live in that house. I already built it. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna go do our. She's rich. We got our own thing. We're gonna go build a
Right,
different
yeah.
house, and like, we'll make sure you're taken care
Yeah.
of. But
But then that's
you're not my family.
sullying or dishonoring the memory of his dead brother.
Sure, but
Saintly
that's also
brother.
not his fucking concern.
It is his concern.
I mean,
It
he
is
thinks
now.
it is
Yeah,
his
yeah.
concern, but
It's
it doesn't have to be. I mean, like, in as much as he doesn't have to marry her, he could make sure that she's taken care of.
yeah.
But at the same time, I understand that in this time period, that would be the best way to make sure that she's taken care of,
Is to marry her.
is to marry her, because we've already said that might possibly take care of the estate issue
Right,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. So
But he does definitely seem like he does, as they're walking, he is reaffirming, like, you remember
suspicions.
the letter, he's reaffirming her suspicions that she's probably
Yeah.
already had just by continuing
Right. He keeps bringing
push
it up,
it.
trying to put her fears to rest.
yeah,
it's like,
and-
come inside the house.
but he's
Yeah.
but
I have
he's
something to take care of first.
but he's ablepated from still
Yeah,
he seems
he's
dazed
still kind of punch drunk.
and just not making a good case for himself.
No.
Jordan, your brother dies, has a wife and a kid. What do you do?
Well, see, again, different time period.
Yeah, but I'm talking.
But what do I do?
What do you do?
I
We'll say same time period or whatever you want to say.
Deadwood times.
Deadwood times again, though. I don't know what conventions would
Okay, now,
compel me.
just to say now.
Just say now.
Just
No,
say
I
now.
wouldn't marry her.
We have it on the record, folks. Jordan is not an honorable man.
Stephen Teague, what would you do?
I would marry that woman and raise that son as my own.
I'd take.
And no, I don't.
Yeah.
It's like no, none of this sounds great. Like it's
Yeah.
just not. It's really.
I'd be there for him as best I could.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like no, yeah,
But-
Exactly.
But there's
in
like almost
any
an
way you can.
incestuous quality
Yes.
Yeah.
to me
Yes.
to be like, oh well, this was my sister-in-law, and now I'm marrying her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at that time,
wouldn't
what
be
are her
weird.
prospects as a widow?
Not very good.
What are Alma Garrett's prospects?
Well, who
She's
was
got gold though.
Yeah,
And she's got the sheriff.
She's got the sheriff.
who was it? I guess it might have been Saul who said to Bullock, your brother's probably looking down from heaven, or maybe it was the Reverend, or maybe it was someone else.
I think it was Saul.
It was Saul, looking down and feeling mighty, proud of you and happy what you're doing for him. It's like you don't know that. Maybe he's looking down. It's like lay your fingers off my woman, Seth.
Right, yeah.
Seth, you.
We didn't have a
back off.
previous conversation
We
about
didn't
this.
talk about this. Come
I
on,
didn't tell you you had to do that.
bringing my wife to this shit pit called Deadwood.
Why'd you bring her there?
And the episode ends with the reading of this letter, which I don't know if it's a real letter, but it sounds so real.
Oh, it was. I really loved the detail. Actually,
Yeah.
like I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm getting into this talk about pine and like the abutments and the
But that's
square angles.
you'll know my feelings based on the letter,
Yeah.
where I just describe how the house is put together.
No, it was just very, just very technical.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
Oh, look,
nothing-
that's it. Those are my thoughts. Very technical. Very. Here is this house that I've given you, and that's it.
This should be sufficient.
Yeah.
And it juxtaposed to him like walking, like on the way to the house, he was like ramrod straight.
Yeah.
Just
That's
like-
kind of how he always walks.
Yeah, but
Right.
then when he looks so much better when he doesn't have the wife and children, he's just like more like a passionate person, single, walking through back to Alma, and he opens Alma, and you guys pointed out this weird mirror shot,
Yeah, it
And
was
then-
like a weird Dutch angle.
and then he hugs her, and then you point out they could only appear in the door, like he
They
couldn't go
can't
into
be out in the
room.
hall because the
They-
people downstairs will see.
they can't. They can't go in the room anymore because it's improper.
Yeah, so it's a lovely, like, touching moment between Alma.
He almost collapses in her arms. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, just
Well, he's
From
what a
concussion.
day.
He's probably got he's got a fucking concussion. He fell off the second
You
story
see, he's
fucking
got like
balcony.
gashes all over his head.
Yeah, still haven't tended to that we've seen of.
Right. Yeah.
No, nobody was
Just
tending
because
to
he
it.
didn't take a bullet,
He
he didn't see the dog.
He just kept saying, "I'm fine."
Yeah, and then he collapsed and hit his head on the ground.
I'm fine. I'm fine. No, Bullock, I'm right here. You're looking at
Yeah.
You're looking way the fuck over there.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess the only thing to add about this episode is the title is "A Lie Agreed Upon,"
A lie
which is
agreed
a
upon.
quote
Which I-
from Napoleon Bonaparte, which is history,
history.
is a lie agreed upon.
the lie agreed upon. I don't know. What could this refer to? Several things. I mean, it seems what comes to mind immediately for me is the relationship with. I mean, the agreement with the thing
Yeah.
with Bullock and his wife and Alma. You know, it's like this is clearly a lie at this point, but we're
Yeah.
all going to act very stiffly and unconvincingly, but we're all going to act like this is everything's on the up and up.
Or even also on a bigger scale, like the lie that Deadwood is becoming its own thing or whatever, and then getting the letter from Yankton where it's like, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, or just that they have any rights to the gold whatsoever. It was
Right,
sacred
exactly.
Indian land.
Yes.
And they just
It's a
started a
lie.
war.
Yep, it's a
And-
lie agreed upon.
And also Bullock and Swearengen,
Right.
their deal, which is like, you know, I'll look the other way while you kill people for money, and
Yeah.
I'll be the sheriff
yeah,
otherwise.
and he's breaking that obviously.
Yeah.
One thing I guess we didn't touch on was a very short conversation between Dan and Johnny at the bar.
Oh, yeah.
Which was pretty, you know, it's one of those great just sort of like Shakespearean side characters re-explaining the plot in a way, re-explaining the context of what's happening, but in plain language pretty much of like,
Yeah.
you know, this is America, you know, part of America now, and we
You're
got
just
to
gonna have to accept it.
just gonna
Get
have to
used
accept it. Gonna
Johnny.
have to watch yourself.
Yeah.
It's pretty
There's all these cocksuckers out there. You just can't trust them.
And
Lies.
Al's going to have to deal with people he don't even like, as if he likes Dan and Johnny.
Right.
And he accurately diagnoses Al, even though he's really, I think, talking about Adams or something. He's like, he says he overplayed his hand to prove himself in an unfamiliar situation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think Dan's a little jelly of
Adams.
Adams is
the new road agent.
Yeah, yeah. He's like it's like a Woody Andy situation.
Yeah.
from Toy Story.
Yeah.
No, Woody
and Buzz.
Woody and Buzz. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good analogy. I like it.
Another cowboy story.
Yeah, another cowboy story, but I like it.
Anyways.
Anyways.
Shoot fever slapping logs. You can't keep the gold from me.